Lesson from the brain, seeing the beauty through the...
What is up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video, and I don't know if I should say another, but welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be finishing the What If Dale Earnhardt Jr. Never Left Dale Earnhardt Incorporated, or DEI for short. Now, the part one was a very long time ago. Do not worry, I will summarize what happened in the first part if you guys don't want to go back and watch that one. But I would suggest, if you guys want to know everything that's going on in this one, I would go back and watch the first one to see what happened in there, and then watch this one. It just kind of makes sense, but I can't force you or anything like that. So, yeah. But quickly, I do want to address before we get into everything how I have been very absent from both Twitter and YouTube. Now, Twitter, I'm usually pretty absent from. I'll go on like these 2 or 3 day stretches where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be, a Twitter pro, and then I just go 2 weeks without posting, and then I come back for a little bit, and it's just back and forth. So. Twitter, I wasn't too surprised, but YouTube was kind of a little bit frustrating. I know I had made a playoff prediction, which I'm kind of glad I didn't post it because I think most of my predictions were wrong. I had Austin Dillon out in the first round. He got to the 12th, or they're on the 12th. Blaney made it kind of far, and he obviously went out in the first round. So, yeah, obviously that wasn't the best videos to not post, but still, that was one that was going to come out, and like once that video didn't post, I just was like, all right, or I wasn't able to get it up in time for the beginning of the playoffs. I was like, do I really feel like making a video? And then it's just like September was an insanely busy month for me. I was doing a lot of work. I had a birthday, and I was doing stuff basically all weekend on my birthday. And there was like a party at my house, not for my birthday, just separate from that. So it was a very busy month for me, and that didn't help. And then October, I just didn't feel like doing anything. And here we are at the end of October, and I'm finally back. So I kind of do this every year. I feel like I did this last year as well. In the months of September and October, I just went inactive. But here we are back again. If you're wondering, the channel is not going to change much, I guess. Just it will not be nearly as, it won't be the 3 to 4 videos a week it was, before, I disappeared. It'll be more 1 video a week. What ifs like this. Me and Chinner are already getting ready to work on another what if, so don't worry, what ifs are here to stay. I might do like a silly season, kind of review, stuff like that, or if there's a big issue in NASCAR, I might, dive into one of those topics, but we're mostly going to stick to 1 video a week, if that, maybe even skip a week if there's nothing really to do. I don't have a what if ready, so if you're wondering what it's not going to be nearly as active as you're used to. It's just a busy time for me. It's my senior year in high school, so I'm kind of wanting to, live that and not really, not let that time pass away. Like, I do enjoy doing these, but I also want to enjoy my senior year, so that's what I'm doing. But enough about me. Let's go ahead and get into what if Dale Earnhardt Jr. never left DEI. Alright, so a warning here right now. If you have not watched part 1, you are going to be confused as heck. So go watch part 1 before you watch this part, because everything's going to be completely different. You won't understand why. You won't have the context why these moves were made and stuff like that. So I highly suggest, if you have not already, go watch part 1 and then come back to this one. Now, you have been warned, and I'm going to get into this. I got a piece of paper with all the changes that happened on it because I was too lazy to type it out, which doesn't make sense because it's easier to type, but here is the gist of what happened in part 1. MTJ, Martin Truex Jr., Dale Jr., and Brad Keselowski are all at DEI right now. They are what DEI's core has been since 2008, or about 2008, 2009, whenever Brad Keselowski joined. Kyle Busch, he stayed at Hendrick Motorsports. He wasn't kicked out by Dale Jr., so he's been driving for the 5 this entire time. The DEI Ganassi partnership never happened. That means instead of the 1, it is the 40 and the 42 instead of the 1 and the 42. Danica Patrick goes to JTG instead of Stuart Haas because she's brought up in DEI's program rather than Junior Motorsports, which you might think is the same thing, but it would be different. Carl Edwards and Clint Bowyer are NASCAR champions. So that's a huge thing that you guys are going to have to go back into the video to go watch and see the context for how they won the championship. If you're wondering, Clint Bowyer won the 2012 championship, and the 2011 championship was when Carl Edwards won. Again, go back to that video for context if you don't know why. Clint Bowyer also drives for Hendrick Motorsports. That's the team he won his championship with. Brett Moffitt is also a bright young talent for a still existent Michael Waltrip Racing that is still alive because Spingate never happened. Furniture Row never gets MTJ, so they're not quite, they don't get the star pairing of Cole Pearn and MTJ to, boost them into a championship, but they still have a talented driver hop in at some point. Eric Almirola has gotten more experience with Red Bull and Michael Waltrip Racing, which is where he's at right now, and it makes him become a consistent winner who is a lot more developed than the Eric Almirola we see today, as Eric Almirola spent the first half of his career in Richard Petty Motorsports equipment, and that didn't really allow him to really get that killer instinct for wins. Now he's running for MWR and Red Bull, which are not great teams, don't get me wrong, but they still were able to allow him to develop his skills a little bit better and become more of a complete driver. And then lastly here, Trevor Bayne is still trash. And that is all that I wrote down to summarize for this video. And now we will get to part 2. Brett Moffitt is actually able to impress Michael Waltrip, and that will, come into play later on, as he's able to have a pretty solid season in the 00 for at least for a rookie, and we'll see how that affects him in the offseason upcoming. In the 55, AJ Allmendinger wins another road course race. I mean, AJ is just a shoo-in for road course race at this point over at Michael Waltrip Racing. So over at JTG Daughtery, Danica Patrick is what you would expect from Danica Patrick. Moving on to Furniture Row, Michael McDowell is able to get 1 win, 5 top 5s, and 16 top 10s for a Cole Pearn-led 78 car. And then over at Stuart Haas Racing, Eric Almirola, he is more developed. He's ran a lot more years and more competitive equipment than he did when he joined Stuart Haas Racing in 2017. He's now in 2015. He's able to get 3 wins, 18 top 5s, and 25 top 10s. Really just a level above what he is in real life right now here at this point. Over at Front Row, Trevor Bayne is, you guessed it, still trash. Moving on to our 2015 results here, AJ's road course win and Almirola's 3 wins knock out Jeff Gordon and Paul Menard. Almirola and Bowyer both make it to the round of 12, taking Gordon's empty spot and outperforming Ryan Newman. This causes for some implications. Almirola takes Gordon's empty spot in the round of 8, having a great playoff run. Carl Edwards replaces Ryan Newman in the final 4, and Kyle Busch wins the 2015 championship. Brett Moffitt impresses in the 00 after replacing Brian Vickers and gets a full-time ride with the team. Trevor Bayne retires earlier than he does in real life and goes ahead and starts the coffee shop. Ryan Newman joins Furniture Row in a, rising 78 team led by Cole Pearn. Ty Dillon replaces Ryan Newman in the 31 a lot earlier than he hasn't even replaced him yet, but a lot earlier than he got the 13 job. So a lot younger Ty Dillon is rushed to the Cup Series, even though he was rushed to begin with. Danica Patrick loses her GoDaddy sponsorship and is replaced by Justin Allgaier as she is forced to retire or just run for low marker teams. And finally, Alex Bowman joins DEI's Xfinity program because Dale Jr. still sees the potential in Alex. Alright, so here we are at the 2016 NASCAR season. DEI has a pretty solid year with MTJ, having about the same season he had IRL, with getting a couple wins here and there. Dale Jr. still has his concussion issues, and Alex Bowman comes up to replace him and presses in his races. Still gets wrecked by KFB Kyle Busch at Phoenix. He also did all of the races instead of just half of them because Jeff Gordon doesn't come to replace him. It's just Alex Bowman and all of the races that Dale is forced to miss. And Brad Keselowski is about the same as IRL. Also in the Xfinity Series, Alex Bowman has a great full-time Xfinity season, getting about 3 to 4 wins and competing for a championship. Over at JGR, Casey Kane has a terrible season and ends up going winless in 2016. and that's just a rough year for him. Over at HMS, Kyle Busch has about the same season he had in IRL 2016. Nothing much changes there. Clint Bowyer only gets 2 wins and looks slightly worse than he did the year prior. Over at Penske Racing, Jamie McMurray gets his yearly win, but it's still declining at a pretty fast rate. Over at Chip Ganassi Racing, David Reagan improves on the year prior and is good enough to maintain his ride, but nothing more. Over at Michael Waltrip Racing, Brett Moffitt doesn't win, but still puts up a solid first full-time season for the team. Ups and downs, but all in all, a great year for the team. AJ Allmendinger actually doesn't get a win this year, but is still the best driver on Michael Waltrip Racing. And in the 56, Reagan Smith does exactly what he's done for the past 5 seasons. Moving on to JTG Daugherty, Justin Allgaier gives the team its first top 15 in 2 years. Furniture Racing, with their new partnership of Ryan Newman and Cole Pearn, he actually gets 3 wins and finishes in the top 10 in just about every race. One of the most consistent runs we've seen in a long time because it's Ryan Newman. And yeah, over at Stuart Haas Racing, Eric Almirola goes off for 4 wins and improves even more on 2015. Over at the coffee shop, Trevor Bayne is still ass and almost goes bankrupt. Over at RCR, Ty Dillon in the 31 is what you expect. And that is all for your changes. Moving on to the 2016 results here. 17 different winners, and Chris Buescher gets the boot for his fluke win at Pocono. And due to Austin Dillon and Chase Elliott not winning, they are also kicked out. Clint Bowyer, Eric Almirola, and Jamie Mack all make it in. Almirola and Bowyer replace open spots left by Chase Elliott and Austin Dillon, and Almirola replaces Kurt Busch in the round of 8, but Jimmy Johnson still goes on to win his 7th championship. Alright, so a lot of stuff going on here in the 2016-2017 offseason. First and foremost, Eric Jones replaces Casey Kane in the 18 after having a terrible winless season for the team. And Casey Kane will move on to the number 56, staying in the Toyota family with Michael Waltrip Racing. Ryan Blaney makes the jump to the 2 car and replacing Jamie Mack, who also had a down year and was clearly just downgrading year in and year out and wasn't going to get any better. So they decided to bring up their young prospect, Penske does, into the number 2 car, and that means later on they'll be staying a 2-car team. Roush Fenway Racing replaces Greg Bithell with Chris Buescher in the 16 and retires the 6 car, and they are now a 2-car operation. Dale Earnhardt Incorporated opens the 88 team, or a new 88 team, for Alex Bowman after impressing in his sub races and his Xfinity season. Matty Benedetto joins JTG Daugherty to drive the number 37. Regan Smith moves to the 21. And finally, Jamie McMurray goes to SHR to pilot the 14. Alright, so here in the 2017 season, MTJ still goes off for 5 wins, but is not quite as dominant getting all the stage wins as without Cole Pearn. He was a huge part of that success, but I still think MTJ's just had a really great year for himself as well. I think he definitely had a big part in that success as well. So I think it's just kind of a middle ground there. Dale Earnhardt Jr., though, without Greg Ives, seems to win in the playoffs and performs better than IRL, but his middle pack, and since his win was in the playoffs and he wasn't able to quite catch up to the playoff field, he misses the playoffs, and it is still his final year. Brad Keselowski in the number 15 has a similar season to IRL, but without Paul Wolfe, he's slightly less consistent. Alex Bowman, remember Brad Keselowski doesn't have a championship to this point and hasn't been quite as consistently good as he was over in the Penske 2 in real life. So a little bit of a different legacy playing out for Brad Keselowski. Still having a great career though. Alex Bowman in the 88, his rookie season, has a similar season to his in real life rookie season at Hendrick. He's developed about the same and has the same ups and downs as he did his rookie year. But that is all for DEI. Moving on to Joe Gibbs. Eric Jones in the 18 has a better rookie season with Adam Stevens, but still doesn't get a win and still misses the playoffs. Over at Hendrick, Kyle Busch has the same year as 2017, earning himself 5 wins. Clint Bowyer has a down year compared to previous seasons, but still gets a win and makes the playoffs. Moving on to Penske Racing, Ryan Blaney has a slightly better season than his first year at Penske and still gets his win at Pocono. Over at Chip Ganassi Racing, David Reagan has a solid season but has slightly plateaued, and you can tell he's not going to get much better from here on out. Michael Waltrip Racing sees a great improvement for Brett Moffitt and has a couple races where he actually went out there and competed for wins. Speaking of winning, AJ Allmendinger is still the top dog and wins a road course race and has a pretty solid season. The fall off is pretty clear at this point for Casey Kane in the 56, and he is obviously the worst of the three MWR cars, having a pretty abysmal season. Over at JTG, AJ Allmendinger improves on his last season, seems to be becoming a pretty solid NASCAR Cup Series driver, and Matt DiBenedetto has a breakout race at Bristol where he led some laps and finished third, but besides that, just kind of has a meh year. Over at Furniture Row Racing, Ryan Newman gets 2 wins with Cole Pern, and his Ryan Newman, think about how good he was over at RCR or Roush, and give him a boost on that. Moving over to Stuart Haas Racing, Eric Almirola has a repeat of his 2016 performance with 4 wins on the season and a solid postseason run. And Jamie Mack in the 14 has the same year as Clint Boyer did in 2017. Over at RCR, don't worry, Ty Dillon's still ass. And over at RPM, Michael McDowell builds on his solid 2016 season, but Bubba Wallace doesn't sub for Eric Almirola, which leaves him jobless for the second half of 2018. Over at the coffee shop, Trevor Bayne improves on a rough first year of business, but maybe he does have talent at being a coffee shop owner. And moving on to your 2017 postseason, Casey Kane, Matt Kenseth, and McMurray are all replaced by AJ Allmendinger, Eric Almirola, and Clint Boyer. Allmendinger, Boyer, Busch, and Dillon are all first-round exits, and the rest of the playoffs maintain the same as MTJ wins the championship for Dale Earnhardt Incorporated. The 2017-2018 offseason is another busy offseason here as Penske stays at a 2-car team. Justin Allgaier replaces Dale Jr. in the number 8. Matt Kenseth doesn't end up retiring because Eric Jones is already in the Cup Series. Paul Menard still joins the Wood Brothers. He's got that Menard sponsorship, obviously. Bubba Wallace goes to the 47 instead of the 43, which, if we're being honest, at this time was better equipment than what he had over at Richard Petty Motorsports. So it's actually a gain for Bubba Wallace. Regan Smith goes to the 37, and that's left open by Matt DiBenedetto, if I can speak English, as he will jump ship to Levine Family Racing. The reason we see him making this move is because it was pretty clear that they had a relationship before this, and they were considering signing them before the whole Joe Gibbs thing. So I think that still happens. Matty D actually goes there a year earlier. And Chase Elliott will stay in the 24 another year. Obviously, that doesn't change teams. He just stays the number because they're not going to get rid of the 24, and they didn't really want to put Clint Boyer in the 24. So Chase Elliott will stay another year in the 24 number. If you guys cared, you probably don't, but I'm a Chase Elliott fan, so I did. 2018 is the year of the infamous Chevy fall-off as they switch to the Camaro, and nothing really changes here. All of MTJ and Kyle Busch, 2 people that weren't originally with Chevy in 2018, they still see fall-off. MTJ only gets 2 wins on the season. Justin Allgaier replacing Dale Jr. has a rough first year with the team. Just the transition and everything just made it, twice as bad. Brad Keselowski only gets 1 win on the year, and Alex Bowman is able to get a win, but pretty well has his sophomore year. I would say it'd be about the same as his sophomore year performance. Over at Joe Gibbs, though, remember now that MTJ and Kyle Busch are not out there winning as many races as they did, that opens up the door for drivers like Eric Jones, who gets 2 wins with more experience and without as many competitive cars out there. Jones is able to get 2 wins on the year. Matt Kenseth gets 2 wins, and Denny Hamlin, who went winless in 2018 in real life, actually gets a win with less competition. So that kind of gives more wins out to more people and spreads the win distribution around. So yeah, there's that. Over at Hendrick Motorsports, Kyle Busch goes winless and barely makes the chase, much like this year. And Clint Bowyer has a major fall off with no wins. Penske Racing, you see Ryan Blaney get 2 wins. Remember, the win distribution is a little wider, and he's able to get 2 wins this year. Over at CGR, Dave Ragan does trash because Chevy's not as good, and he just has a huge fall off like a lot of people over at Chevy. But with Michael Waltrip Racing, Brett Moffitt gets a win and makes it into the playoffs, and Allmendinger, why did I say it like that? AJ Allmendinger, he gets a road course win, but Casey Kane still has a rough year and has the health issues at the end of the season like he does in real life. Over at RCR, we actually didn't see much difference. Sorry, I have COVID. Actually, I just got tested. But Ty Dillon, guess what? He still has. But he didn't see much fall off. He was just as bad as he was the year prior. So I guess progress there. Over at JTG, though, Bubba Wallace has the same year as his rookie year, but is, somewhat improved. Regan Smith is pretty much trash in the 37 team. Over at Furniture Row, though, Newman is able to get 2 wins with Cole Pern as his crew chief. And as we move over to Stuart Haas Racing, Eric Almirola gets 5 wins. As I've said, he's more developed. He's really a top-tier driver at this point. And over in the 14, though, Jamie McMurray has about the same year he had in 2017 in this scenario. Looking at RPM, Michael McDowell has a major fall-off because of the switch over to Chevy. And finally, Levine Family Racing, Matt DiBenedetto has a slightly better season than Casey Kane. Moving on to your 2018 postseason, Matt Kenseth, AJ Allmendinger, and Newman make the playoffs, kicking out Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Larson, and Clint Bowyer. Ryan Newman and Matt Kenseth both make the round of 12 in replacement of Clint Bowyer and Kyle Larson. Martin Truex Jr. and Kyle Busch miss out on the round of 8, and Newman and Blaney advance into the round of 8. Kurt Busch and Almirola both make the final 4, but we all know who wins, so let's just move on with their lives. It's 2018. We all know who won the championship this year. Kyle Busch leaves Hendrick Motorsports after a disappointing 2018 season, and he will head over to Joe Gibbs Racing to drive the number 19. William Byron is promoted to the Cup Series, and the 5 team becomes the 24 team, and obviously piloted by William Byron. The 24 team becomes the 9 team for Chase Elliott, obviously, as it did in real life. Daniel Suarez goes to the 41, and Kurt Busch still goes to the 40, still goes to the 40, goes to the 40 because the 40 is the 1 team over at Chip Ganassi Racing, but that kind of plays out the same. Casey Kane still retires. Christopher Bell replaces Kane at Michael Waltrip Racing, and because obviously Christopher Bell is a Toyota development driver, Michael Waltrip Racing is a Toyota team, so Bell will replace Kane in the 56. A struggling Clint Bowyer is replaced by a Ryan Newman who is out of a job due to Furniture Row still closing. RCR stays to a 2-car team doesn't bring up Daniel Hemrick. They don't, they just keep it the 2 Dillon brothers. And, Bowyer also goes to the 14 for Stuart Haas Racing. And here we are at the final season of the video, the 2019 NASCAR season. Starting with DEI, sees an improvement on last year's collapse of Chevy, but not too much. MTJ and Kozlowski are about the same as they were the year prior, just better. Allgaier, we see a lot of improvement from Justin Allgaier. He goes out there and competes for a couple wins and all, but it's still not a great season. And I'd say Bowman has about the same as his 2019 in real life. Over at Joe Gibbs Racing, Kyle Busch is a breakout 8-win regular season, or not regular season, but just season, and has similar to his first year over at Joe Gibbs in real life with help from Cole Pern, who is paired up after them seeing the potential of them over at Furniture Row. Matt Kenseth has a Matt Kenseth-esque year. Over at Hendrick Motorsports, Byron in the 24 has a little bit better year than 2018 because he has a little bit more experience, and he does have Chad Knaus as his crew chief. Ryan Newman in the 5 goes winless, but just kind of does Newman things. Over at Michael Waltrip Racing, Brett Moffitt will take in the 00. Improves, doesn't get a win though, gets very close, but is very consistent. In the 55, you guessed it, AJ Allmendinger gets a road course dub, as Shinry says. Christopher Bell has a rough year in the 56 with a lot of ups and downs, but a promising ending. And at RCR, guess what? Ty Dillon is, as Shinry said, effing ass. I had to think about what I wanted to say, if I should say it or not. JTG, Bubba Wallace is about the same as IRL, but some backing from WWT. See some improvements because of that. RPM shuts down halfway through the season without Bubba Wallace and his sponsorship backing, so RPM has shut down at this point. Stuart Haas Racing, Eric Almirola is still able to go off for 4 wins, and Clint Boyer has a year similar to his in real life, 2019. Also, Levine Family Racing doesn't get the Gibbs Alliance because of Michael Waltrip Racing, and as usual, Matt DiBenedetto outperforms his equipment. Moving on to the 2019 playoffs, Allmendinger kicks out Clint Boyer. Everything plays out the same, except Joey Logano replaces MTJ in the Final Four, and Kyle Busch dominates the season, playoffs, and Homestead en route to winning his 2nd career championship. After 2 disappointing seasons with DEI, MTJ heads to the number 20 to replace a retiring Matt Kenseth. Clint Boyer is kicked out by Cole Custer and seemingly retires until Larson does an oopsie still, because coronavirus still happens, and he gets the 42 job instead of Matt Kenseth, who chooses to stay in retirement, and Suarez keeps the 41. After impressing Dale Jr. by outperforming in the number 95, Jr. signs Matt DiBenedetto to replace MTJ in the number 1. RCR will open a 3rd team, bringing back the number 27 for Tyler Reddick. Austin Cindric is rushed to the 21 car and for Wood Brothers Racing, mostly because of his good old dad, I think is the one that's in Penske. Because Buescher is already at Roush Fenway Racing, Ricky Stenhouse gets another year in the 17. And that is all for your 2019-2020 offseason. All right, so that is it for this What If. If you guys did enjoy, be sure to leave a like, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below. What did you guys think of this What If? Was I wrong? Where do you think me and Chenry went wrong? If you do think we went wrong, and be sure to let us know any suggestions you have for future What Ifs. Like I said, we're working on a What If probably in the next couple of days here. It won't be out in the next couple of days, but it'll be out in a while. And yeah, I think that's about all I got. So I will see you guys in the next one. Peace out.
Yeah, stop wasting my time trying to get mine, get out the way, move, trying to get paid, bands on the way, just bought a safe, ooh, crib with a gate, I need me a lake, but that's on the way, ooh, yeah, that's on the way.